And then there's another incident that occurred where Bruce was training with one of his, I guess one of the famous actors. He was training and running with the famous actor, and Bruce was running very fast, and the actor couldn't keep up. He was older and couldn't keep up with Bruce, and told Bruce that, hey, I can't go anymore. If I go anymore, I'm gonna die. And then Bruce said, then die. The actor got very upset at Bruce and just started to run faster and faster, and basically, out of anger, he kept up with Bruce. And then at the end of that training or that run, they're in the shower, and Bruce said to him, you can't put limitations on yourself. If you put limitations on yourself throughout your life, then pretty much like life is not worth living. You might as well just die. You can't allow yourself to be limited. So he was telling this actor this, and him saying that pretty much would indicate that that's how he would do it. He would rather just die than to slow down and to rest. And it kind of showed towards the end of his career, or towards his death, that he didn't slow down. He just kept going and going. He wasn't sleeping anymore. He found it very difficult to sleep, and he was just constantly thinking about the movies and constantly overworking himself. Not watching out for his health and his safety, and not eating as much. He was losing weight. So he just kept pushing himself. And knowing, it's kind of like, this happens a lot in the marathons, where you have people that are running these marathons and they just keep running even though they don't feel good. And then a lot of them pass out and die. Some of them pass out and die, where it's their ego that takes over, and they want to finish so badly that they refuse to stop. What ends up happening, they might get a heart attack, or they dehydrate, and then they die. And that's pretty much what happened to Bruce. He just kept pushing himself until pretty much he knew that his body was gonna fail on him. And it's almost like he wanted he wanted to die on top. Because to be at the level that he was, where everybody's challenging him constantly, because he's basically making himself out to be the greatest martial artist in the world, or the greatest fighter in the world, that's something it's not easy to live up to. Constant challenges, day after day after day. And in order to maintain that high level of training, requires an immense amount of effort. And you can only keep that effort up for so long. Sooner or later, you're going to drop off. It's kind of like saying these Olympic athletes having to keep up their level of training every single year. They wouldn't be able to do it. It's impossible. The human body is not capable of being at a high level for eternity, and of that level of fitness. And that's what he was representing, is like the highest level that he could be at. And he couldn't keep that up, forever. He might have known this and said, hey, you know what, it might be better for me to die on top than to fall off and have somebody overcome me as I age, and things of that nature. I do not believe that he wanted to be like a Chuck Norris or a Van Damme or a Steven Seagal, who's just a pretty good martial artist, but then as they age, they just drop off, and other people replace him or replace them. I do not believe he wanted to be that. I think he wanted to stay at the top and have nobody able to reach his status. And that's pretty much what happened. Nobody, because he died on top, nobody could reach his status. Just like Rocky Marciano, I think he's the only boxer that has an undefeated record. And that's because he died, I believe it was from an airplane crash or something like that. So he died with undefeated record. And pretty much every single boxer, every single fighter, if they keep fighting, they will eventually lose. I do not believe that Bruce Lee wanted to be like Mike Tyson, where he reaches a high level and then only to lose to like Buster Douglas, who is not even nearly as good as Mike Tyson was, but just got pretty much a lucky win over him. And then from there, Mike Tyson's career just went downhill, or his fighting career just went downhill. I do not believe that Bruce Lee wanted that to happen, and he might have planned it out to be this way in order for him to be a legend and to be untouchable. And if you compare it to somebody like Tupac Shakur, who is also another legend, Tupac got shot 5 times before he actually died in Las Vegas. He had a near-death experience, just like Bruce Lee had a near-death experience. Tupac got shot 5 times by somebody else. Bruce Lee inflicted the own violence on himself by chewing the cannabis and having his body allergically react to it and things of that nature. But, Tupac had a near-death experience, and from that near-death experience, a reasonable person will know that, hey, this may happen again. My life, I probably will not live very long. I probably will die pretty young. It had to be in his mind. And that is, so he might have been, so it's clear that he was preparing for his early death. You can see it through his music, through his lyrics. That's why he kept creating all these albums before he died, and only to be released after his death. So he knew that his life was going to be taken early. I mean, if you get shot 5 times and you almost die, then you pretty much will know, hey, there's a possibility that this will happen again, sometime in the near future. So he prepared for it, and through that preparation, it made him more of a, it made him a legend, and it made him have even more fame than he could ever have than if he continued to live and rap. Then he'd just be like another rapper, like maybe Jay-Z or somebody, or Eminem. But they can never be a legend like Tupac, because these rappers are still living. So Tupac is like untouchable because he's a legend. And it's the same thing with Bruce Lee. He's untouchable because he's a legend. He's considered pretty much like the grandfather or the main pioneer to bring martial arts to Western society, to America. And that can never be changed. It's like nobody could ever redo what he did. It's like saying, it's like Einstein, Albert Einstein. It's like you can't redo what he discovered or what he had to share to the world. It cannot be redone. He already is the number one pioneer, and that's what Bruce Lee, that's the status that he got to. And the difference between Einstein and Bruce Lee is that Einstein, his abilities were strictly mental. It was nothing physical. So his mental capabilities will only pretty much increase as he ages. So for him to live longer, it will increase his fame, because there may be more discoveries, there are more creations that he could share with the world. So for him to live longer, it's better. But as an athlete, like someone like Bruce Lee, who is basically gained the fame from the world through his physical abilities, his fighting ability, his martial art ability, something physical like that is only temporary. It cannot last as long as the mental. You could only keep up a high level of training for so long. And basically, sooner or later you will drop off, just like Michael Jordan, just like Muhammad Ali, just like Brett Favre. Everybody that's an athlete will drop off from that pedestal. So for an athlete to reach the legendary status, he had to die at a very young age to be considered all-time great and untouchable. So, and then another thing, which is pertaining to the philosophy of the East. If you study it deeply, you will see there is no such thing in the East as far as Buddha's teachings are concerned. And Bruce Lee would talk about water. This is one of the main concepts that he would share. So Bruce Lee would talk about water, and this is a main representation of Tao. And if you see the Tao Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee definitely was influenced by Tao. Now you talk about water, you're talking about water being formless, being shapeless, and that's how you want to be. Now if you see water, you see that it cannot be destroyed. If you see water and you really understand the depth of the Eastern philosophy of Buddha's teachings, you'll see, and even Krishna, you'll see that there is no such thing as death. That there is no beginning, there is no end. And if you have a deep understanding of this, then there is no fear of death. And when you transcend that, then Bruce Lee, he might have gotten to that point of where he transcended, and therefore he didn't have that fear of death. And that's why he may have worked himself to death purposely in order to go beyond and, I guess, achieve that legendary fame that he wanted to achieve from the very beginning. And really, when he's talking about formless and shapeless, we may think that he's dead, but really the spirit lives on. And Bruce Lee's spirit is still living through me and through everybody that's ever been inspired by him, through his art, through his movies, through his writings, through everything. His spirit lives on, and that's what it means but to be shapeless. Like Bruce Lee is no longer in that body that he used to have, but it has transformed like how water transforms into different shapes through the people, through us. And that is the philosophy behind. And with that philosophy, it could even be more of an indication of why he decided to work himself to an early death. Because he may have gotten to the point where he had that deep understanding of that philosophy of the Tao, where there is no beginning, there is no end. So it wouldn't even matter if he died at the age of 32, or if he died at the age of 42, or 62, or 92. It's no beginning, and there is no end. So, with that, I believe that there is quite a possibility that he may have planned it all out in order to become a legend.